In this edition, I'm going to break down, predict the main event at UFC 147 between Wanderlei Silva and Rich Franklin. This is obviously the second time these guys are meeting the octagon. First time these guys fought it was at UFC 99. Rich Franklin took away a unanimous decision. I believe it was 30-27, 29-28, 29-28. People contemplated that 30-27, saying the fight was much closer. Wanderlei Silva felt that he won the fight. But Rich Franklin came away the victor in that fight. Now, obviously, Wanderlei Silva and Vitor Belfort were supposed to fight each other at UFC 147, but Vitor Belfort got hurt. Rich Franklin was supposed to face Kung Lee at UFC 148, and obviously now Rich Franklin gets moved down to face Wanderlei Silva at the main event in Brazil. So what I'm going to do in this video is that I'm going to break down both fights and do my prediction. Just very quickly, I'd just like to say is that, a lot of people are saying the UFC 147 isn't a good card. It's not. It's not good on paper. There's a couple good fights here and there, but it's not a fight that I will be paying for. And I'm not one to complain about fights. Fights are fights. It's not the best card on paper. I'll personally be watching this fight for free at Buffalo Wild Wings. Just not one I'm going to pay money for, but I will not miss these fights. I'm not going to complain about these fights. We're getting a good weekend of fights. But to say that UFC 147 is the best card, no. But, I mean, crazier things have happened. Could turn out to be an entertaining card. Doesn't have the biggest names. However, I think this fight between Franklin and Wanderlei Silva is going to be an entertaining fight. So that's just my take. I think these guys always put on entertaining fights. They always go for the kill. They may be older guys, but they're going to put on an entertaining fight. This will be a good fight. So I'm just going to break down both fights and do my predictions. So I'll start with Rich Franklin. Now, Rich Franklin's obviously a veteran of the game. Very well experienced fighter, just like Wanderlei Silva. Guy has a ton of finishes. He's a big guy. He's fought both at light heavyweight and middleweight, fought a catchweight a couple of times. And the thing about Rich Franklin is that this guy self-taught himself submission fighting, then got into mixed martial arts. He's a former middleweight champion. He's faced Anderson Silva twice. And the guy's an outstanding fighter. Obviously, he's getting up there in the age. But Rich Franklin, we know what to expect from Rich Franklin, just like we know what to expect from Wanderlei Silva. Rich Franklin is a good stand-up striker. He bases a lot of he's a good counter striker. Rich Franklin has a kickboxing background, and in his last fight with Wanderlei Silva was most definitely the aggressor, but Rich Franklin was controlling the octagon. He was putting together a good 1-2 or using his jab and then finishing with a good kick to the body. He used that very effectively in his last fight with Wanderlei Silva. I think that will definitely be a big factor in this fight coming up. So Rich Franklin's got good power in his hands. Rich Franklin has 15 knockouts on his resume. He is, like I said, he's a counter striker. He can be aggressive, but he likes to let people play into his hand. He can knock out guys. I mean, he's struggled to finish guys lately. Obviously, he finished Chuck Liddell. That was a couple of fights ago. But you know what to expect from Rich Franklin in the stand-up department. He's going to control the octagon. He's going to let you strike. Then he's going to catch you off guard. The thing that he lacks, though, is that he does have good knockout power, but he lacks speed. I don't want to say he throws meat hooks, but he does lack ideal speed and explosiveness. But Rich Franklin makes up for it with smarts and brains in the stand-up department. He's also good in the clinch. Rich Franklin is a big, imposing force. Whether it's middleweight or light heavyweight, he's a big guy. He's got good strength. And he can control in the clinch. He can throw strikes in the clinch. Whether it's a good idea against Wanderlei Silva, it might not be the best of ideas, especially against a skilled clinch guy like Wanderlei Silva. He can also get fights down the ground. He can sweep. And on the ground, he's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has won 10 fights by submission, but I don't see him submitting Wanderlei Silva in this fight. Wanderlei Silva's never been submitted. Rich Franklin's never been submitted. He's got good submission defense. He's got good submission offense. Both guys do. And another advantage, just some pros and cons for Rich Franklin. Pros are definitely the fact that his size, he's the bigger guy in this fight. His reach, he has a 76-inch reach to Wanderlei Silva's 74. Also, Rich Franklin has beaten Wanderlei Silva before. I don't want to say he has his number. It was a close fight, but he has beaten Wanderlei Silva before. Also is that his counter-striking will match well against Wanderlei Silva's aggressive fighting style. Cons for Rich Franklin. I'd say his chin's questionable. The guy has been knocked out before, just like Wanderlei Silva. Also, his cardio. This will be a factor. This is a 5-round fight. It'll be a factor for both fighters. And also his BJJ. He's not a black belt. He's a brown belt. He's never been submitted before, but Wanderlei definitely has the submission advantage in this fight. So that's what I have in regards to Rich Franklin. Where I see him being successful in this fight, I think if he could take, obviously I think Wanderlei Silva is going to change his strategy a little bit in this fight. Still think he's going to be aggressive, but I think if Rich Franklin could counter-strike and try and fight smarter than Wanderlei and catch him on his mistakes, but he cannot just sit around. I mean, I know he tried to pick Wanderlei Silva apart, but if he is to rock Wanderlei Silva, he's got to smell blood in the water. He's got to finish the fight. He can't just wait around. He's got to, if he catches Wanderlei, he's got to swarm. He can't just let this one go into later rounds. I mean, cardio is an issue for both fighters. So he's got, if he does rock Wanderlei, he's got to go for the finish. So I see if Rich Franklin's successful, it could go decision. But I see him, if he's going to win this fight, it's going to be by TKO or knockout. So that's what I have for Rich Franklin. So Wanderlei Silva. Wanderlei Silva is a Pride legend. He's had a up and down UFC career, but I mean he's one of the most well-known fighters in mixed martial arts. He's one of the most popular fighters in mixed martial arts due to his Pride days and just the type of guy he is with his fans, but also his skill set. You know, he may be going up there in the age, but Wanderlei Silva, like I said with Rich Franklin, you know what to expect with Wanderlei Silva. He's always going to press the pace. He's always going to come right at you and be aggressive. That's his fighting style. It's a fearless fighting style. That's exactly what Wanderlei Silva embodies. Always going through the finish, just back in the Pride days as well. So Wanderlei Silva's skill set, I mean, the guy in the stand-up department, he's incredibly aggressive. He has really, really good power. Wanderlei Silva, he goes forward, he throws heavy hooks and good strikes. He has 24 knockouts on his resume, and it could be a mixture of both ways. He could either catch you in the stand-up game or in the clinch. Wanderlei Silva's clinch game, I mean, his ability to throw knees and separate with elbows, I mean, you're talking about one of the best guys with a Muay Thai clinch. Wanderlei Silva's his control, I mean, we've seen what he's done countless times. Obviously, it's been a while since we've seen that, but Wanderlei Silva's clinch game is some of the best of all time. The guy's control, his knees, the strikes that he throws, like I say, he's getting up there in age, but you know you can't take any credit away from Wanderlei Silva's clinch game. So his stand-up game, we know what to expect. Very aggressive. He does leave his head exposed. He does have a reach disadvantage in this fight, but his aggression, his aggressive fighting style. He can control the octagon. He catches people off guard with his aggressive style, and when he smells blood in the water, you know what to expect from Wanderlei. He's going to come right after you and try and finish the fight. The guy tries to finish fights all the time. In regards to his clinch, as I said, good control, good strikes. On the ground, I mean, Wanderlei can get fights on the ground. He does fight well off his back. He does have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't see him getting submitted in this fight. I don't see him winning by submission in this fight. So some pros and cons for Wanderlei Silva. Pros are that I'd say he's hungry. I mean, I think he's going to be at least a little bit readjusted for this fight. I also think the fact that he's trained with Lyoto Machida for this fight, I think it's going to help with his stand-up defense. He does leave his head exposed, but Lyoto Machida is one of the best at avoiding strikes. I think he's going to help with Wanderlei Silva in that department. I also say his aggressive stand-up style, he's definitely the faster guy in this fight. I think he's faster than Rich Franklin. He's got a little bit more pop in his step and explosiveness in his hands, and also his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. Cons for Wanderlei Silva is definitely his chin. He's been knocked out quite a few times in his career. We've seen it a lot. I mean, not a lot recently, but we've seen him get knocked down. He does get wobbled. We've seen it countless times in the UFC. And he's been knocked down in the UFC. Chris Lieben, Rampage Jackson, we've seen guys do this time and time again. So I think his chin will be a factor in this fight. Also, I'd say cardio is a factor, just like Rich Franklin. His size and his reach is also a factor as well. I mean, he has a reach disadvantage. He has a size disadvantage in this fight. And where I see Wanderlei Silva being successful in this fight, I think if he's aggressive, if he catches Rich Franklin, he's got to swarm all over the guy. He's got to try and finish this fight. You can't let Rich recover. So I see him being aggressive in the stand-up department, catching Rich Franklin, trying to win this fight by knockout or TKO. So where my prediction lies in this fight is that I think this is going to be just as exciting a fight as the first one. I think both guys will come back and forth. It's going to be a back-and-forth fight. These guys are going to spend a lot of time in the center of the octagon. That's where I see this one taking place. It's going to be back and forth. We're going to see exchanging strikes back and forth. We're going to see Wanderlei press forward. I think we're going to see a little bit of a little bit better of head movement. I think it's going to be a little bit of raised awareness. I'm not talking about an instant solution to him exposing his head and pressing forward, but I think we're going to see him a little bit more aware of keeping his head exposed. I see Rich Franklin landing his counter strikes. I see that leg kick being a big factor, just like it was in the first fight. And it's going to go, this is a 5-round fight. I don't see it going 5 rounds. These guys are going to be gassed in 4 and 5. And I think what it comes down to is who has the better chin. And both guys do have questionable chins. But what comes down to is that I see Rich Franklin's counter strike. I see Wanderlei Silva pressing forward. I see him rocking Rich Franklin a couple of times. But what it comes down, I see Rich Franklin landing a counter strike. I see Rich Franklin smelling blood in the water, swarming all over Wanderlei Silva and finishing this fight by TKO or knockout. That's why I see it coming down to. I don't see this one going into maybe round 4. It could go. I don't see this going to 5. I don't see it going to decision. But I'm going to take the guy with the better chin in this fight. I'm going to take Rich Franklin, the counter striker and the smarter stand-up fighter. And hopefully we get to see Wanderlei Silva. Maybe he retires. He'll still go down as a legend, a great fighter, or we'll get to see Wanderlei Silva in the octagon one more time. So I'll take Rich Franklin defeating Wanderlei Silva at UFC 147 by TKO or knockout. And that's what I have for this edition. It's Kyle Delaney signing off. I'm out of here.